Good evening. My name is JWarren, and I'm here to talk to you about two of the articles that we went over in our learning today, all addressing accessibility. So the first one was Introduction to Web Accessibility by WebAIM. And so one of the things that I found kind of fascinating in this article was just this idea that the internet has actually been very supportive to people with disabilities. And they bring up the example of in the past, when people were trying to read the newspaper and they were blind or they had some sort of visual impairment, they weren't able to access the text because there was nothing there to support it, unless maybe somebody read it to them, but they needed that they depended on somebody to be there for them. Where now with the internet, there are all sorts of ways for them to access the content on the internet. So I thought that was very interesting and new to me. Some of the things that I found really important in this article too were I loved the principles of accessible design. So when we started distance learning in our district, we were really trying to figure out what were the important concepts or criteria that teachers could use in order to make sure that what they were putting out there to students was accessible to all of them. And so I find these to be something like a checklist that teachers then could now take and reflect back on their lessons to make sure that the things they're putting out there are accessible. So for example, when they talk about alternative text, right? Looking at how it aligns in content page, or just when they're posting videos or doing things, are they using the closed captions? Are they remembering all these things? Because now, since everything's kind of new, there's a lot of stuff they have to keep in mind. So I found that those things might be really helpful in trying to kind of create this awareness. The other thing that I loved was when you're implementing it, just this idea first, like I just talked about, awareness to it. And I know when we started done distance learning back in last spring, that was something that was new to us, right? Now, considering that not everybody is going to access the material online in the same way. Some people will need help with reading it. Some people will need help with even seeing it, the different languages that our families speak in our district, in our community, and making sure that since they were going to be the primary person there to help the students, they had to be able to understand it as well. So I think just that awareness that whatever we're putting out there, we need to make sure we really are taking all of these different things into consideration. With leadership, I know in our district, we've been really big about working with all the different departments and utilizing and make sure teachers have in their access all these tools that will help them. And then again, with the policies and procedures, just making sure everything that we are doing as a district is in line with making these things accessible. The designing online learning opportunities for students, one of the things I loved about this was the connection to UDL, because as I was reading it, that was one of the things that I was thinking in my head was this sounds like something that from a UDL framework that would fit very in line very nicely. It was surprising to me about how many special ed students are actually kind of going into the online education world. I feel like we've kind of been forced into it because of this unprecedented time we are in. So ready or not, it was kind of here we come. But I do appreciate that connection to UDL because it's something that we have been doing in our district. So whether we're in a pandemic and we have to do distance learning or in the future, that is something that we can kind of gravitate towards and use. I also really liked the different resources, the use and the UDL scan tool. So that's something that I would really love to look more into. But just again, always keeping in mind that we have students and learners with different variabilities, and we have to be mindful of that. We usually have always relied on our special ed teachers or outside people to kind of help students with these different supports. And now, especially in this kind of era, we may have students who have IEPs and it's very clear what the supports they need, but we also have students out there who do not have IEPs but are still entitled to the same access. So just making sure that we're always having that lens on, I think is very important.